yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike is still out on assignment. I don't know if it was something about that FAMU last second shot that has read him off the board and the Bethune-Cookman close game. I don't know, the trip to Florida. I made it. I got back in the house. Mine was a plane trip. I got an excuse. Welcome to episode 237 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from the institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, let me get straight to the business and go to Professor Bishop as he's in the building. How you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. And first and foremost, let me start off by saying happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dr. Cavil. Yes, indeed.
Thank you for that. Yes. It's been a good one thus far. Making sure I see one on the other side. It's better than the alternative. So I'm
there you go.
Celebrate.
All day. A lot of great stuff to get into, Doc. A lot of great news out there today. They got some football news. Football is year round, of course. In the HBCU environment. Yes, we might well just jump right into it, Doc. Clark Atlanta. Today, they named HBCU legend Willie Slater as their next new head coach. Of course, Coach Slater comes over from Tuskegee, where he won 7 SIAC championships as head coach. He takes over for Tim Bowens, who served as Clark's coach for the past 3 years. And this is a statement from Jalen Dawson, Clark's athletic director. We're excited to have Willie Slater as part of the Clark Atlanta University football family. In 42 years of coaching, Coach Slater has been the standard for excellence in winning football. So that is a huge news today coming out of the SIAC as Willie Slater takes his talents from Tuskegee over to Clark.
Before I ask you how you doing, and I don't want to be rude about this, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on this Clark Atlanta hire. So before we even do the pleasantry, let's just get to the gusto. What are your thoughts on this?
Before I even do that, I'm going to also echo Charles is telling the great doctor happy birthday, number one. Number two, great hire, man. That is a great hire by Clark Atlanta. And I don't know why there's an image over my face right now. I'm glad it disappeared. But look, Willie Slater is class personified especially when it comes to this coaching genre. Man, 65 years old. I've known the man for the 16 years he was at Tuskegee University. Never once have I heard a 4 or 5 letter word come out this man's mouth. That's a testament to the type of character that he is. Now, he can say what he has to say with emotion without using those type of words. So Clark Atlanta, you have gotten yourself a gem. I hope Clark is on the Tuskegee schedule. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at deep to see if Clark is on the Tuskegee schedule this year, as our annual crossover game is always with Morehouse. So we know Morehouse is on the schedule every year. So man, the SIAC East just raised the bar even higher. I mean, you've already got Albany State, who's been the kings of the SIACs for the last couple of years. Gonna be interesting to see what Savannah State has when they finalize their hire, because they're still working on an interim coach. Benedict is Benedict. Benedict is a team you can never count out, but you don't know which year they're gonna be good, which year they're gonna be bad. Morehouse, I mean, Coach Sims over there at Morehouse is, and Coach Freeman is over there at Morehouse is always going to be competitive. Now you've just raised the level of their AUC brethren, Clark Atlanta. I mean, it's going to be fun in the SIAC East. And you got new player, Edward Waters, coming in.
And you got Sean Gibbs coming over to Fort Valley State from North Carolina A&T. So that was a huge hire on yesterday.
Yes. And we talked about this yesterday on Tuesday show, Charles, and before I turn it back over to Doc. Today is Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got this news in enough time where we can put it on our show. It's not Friday afternoon.
not a Friday news, though.
Yeah, Clark Atlanta understood the assignment. Like we got a nice hire here. We're gonna make sure the people know about it and get time to talk about it.
Matter of fact,
interesting. But
this
I
thing
think
hit me before lunchtime today. I got it at 10 o'clock Eastern time when I got word of the hire. So not only was this not a Friday news, though, this was a midday news story for Clark Atlanta.
Yes. Yeah. And they actually snuck it out a little bit. They're even prepping people for it that they were excited about it. So kudos to Clark Atlanta for getting it right and understanding the assignment. But to a bigger point, and the commissioner, SIAC, he was excited in a lot of ways. He snuck out and gave me a couple of texts in terms of what's going on in the SIAC. And you're right on it. That East Division, now I know it's on paper and we got to see how things look. But in terms of the coaches, whether they're new people that have been on historic programs, North Carolina A&T, or historic coach themselves, programs that are already doing well in terms of their trajectory, yeah, I don't know. We thought the SWAC had it going on in regards to the coaching depth of those teams and what was going on recruiting, and obviously deservedly so in a lot of ways. They continue to get the limelight, but just those that are really intrigued about the football nuances and the coaches and the names of what we've seen, SIAC can at least come sit at the table, I believe, and have a meaningful discussion.
Half the conference, because the western half is probably up for grabs right now. You would have to say Lane would be the
I was speaking. That's why I said I was specifically talking about that East.
Yeah, because the West is up for grabs right now. Lane would be the favorite. Lane is the only team that has a returning coach this year. Think about it.
We'll talk about the West when we get to the season. They not there. It's not there yet. Not there yet. With that being said, we basically got through the coaching hires and a lot of stuff there. I wanted to go in here. What are your thoughts in terms of the baseball? I know it's early. We're still in basketball mode, but in a lot of ways, baseball to some programs in the SWAC are bigger than what you see in terms of some of the basketball. We're going to take a deep dive in basketball, so we'll get our chance to do that. But in terms of the news, there was a release in terms of what you consider the baseball release for the SWAC, and let you know how big that was. It looks like we're getting a little bit about some of that old SWAC energy with the predicted order of finish being Jackson State and Southern. Back to that old business. Now, some other folks going to have some say in this, but to the point, they released the baseball predicted standings. And this includes the new Rokers into the business out of the Florida, FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, proud baseball programs in themselves. So it'll be interesting. Jackson State, starting in the East Division, first place with 89 total points, 8 first-place points. Behind them is Alabama State. FAMU third, Bethune-Cookman fourth to let you know how deep that division is. This team, last couple of years, they were finished first in the MEAC. Alabama A&M fifth and Valley sixth. You go over to the West, and you see Southern tally 11 first place votes with 98 points. Number 2 is Grambling, new coach over there. That's an interesting pick. Prairie View that finished first last year in the COVID year. They're third. And Texas Southern, a power broker in a lot of this, they're all the way picked the 4th. You know, I know Coach Robinson over there is like, yeah, we'll
Shopping.
take that. Yeah, he'll take that. You have Arkansas Pine Bluff 5th, and then you move Alcorn State over to the West, and they're feeling that punch now because they picked 6th in the West. Just letting you know how we think about baseball in the West Division. Notice said we. Let me go to you first, Charles, and then we'll backtrack and see if AD has any thoughts on that.
I mean, when you stop and take a look at the SWAC East, Jackson State went undefeated in conference play last year, and they're bringing back the meat and potatoes of that team. But you have Alabama State with 9 all-conference selections. And then you throw in the mix FAMU and Bethune-Cookman with their proud tradition. They've won championships over there in the MEAC. This is going to be a fun baseball season. And as always, Dr. Cavil, it comes down to who has those arms, who has those midweek arms that can keep those weekend arms fresh. Do you have a bullpen? Do you have somebody that can put out the fire in the 9th inning? That's what it all comes down to. Jackson State was almost able to pull it all the way off last year. You take your hat off to Southern in one of the most exciting baseball games that we've seen in years, with Southern knocking off Jackson State in the SWAC championship game. But you're talking about Ty Hill. You're going to see some guys that are going to have some, and Breon Poole, I should say, that are going to have some great opportunities to play on the next level.
Yeah, great point. Michael Ford said, which baseball programs are bigger than the hoops?
Ooh.
I think right now, you can argue for a while now that Southern's baseball is bigger than what they've done in basketball. Now, if you go back into history, people are going to challenge you on that. I'm talking about over the last 20 years. Baseball has been extremely prominent at Southern University and carried a lot of weight, and certainly was on the level of basketball. And I would say over the last 10 years, maybe 20, have surpassed, sneak in there, maybe Jackson State. They kind of raised the cream in terms of basketball last year. And obviously you go back and they'll take anybody, one-on-one in terms of their basketball history. But in terms of the interest and teams that have been successful, I would talk about Jackson State.
Yeah.
FAMU is new to it, but I would even put FAMU in there in terms of the reverberations of their baseball program. Now the basketball team is getting up there and they're making a run in the SWAC. And over the last couple of years, they revived the men's basketball program. But baseball over the last 10 years for sure has been solid. So don't get it twisted. In the SWAC, baseball is serious. They take it real serious here. Now, whether it may be over basketball, you can argue, obviously, Texas Southern basketball, I would argue, is even bigger than football in terms of historically and the current market in terms of what you do. Prairie View football is still big, but in terms of the last 10 years, the fan base of what that basketball program has done the last 5 years, to some degree the last 10, basketball on the men's side is big. And previous that, the women's side of basketball was rolling at Prairie View, winning 5 consecutive championships with different coaches. And people would pack that arena to support those programs. So it's unique. It really goes program to program. And I try to tell folks, when you look at conferences and start really looking at sports, you really look at the nuances and see where a program is at a given period of time and what's big. And in the SWAC, baseball takes a backseat to no one in terms of what they believe their program is. Any thoughts on that, Drew, before we go to this break?
I challenge you to go down to Daytona, Florida, where you were just at this past weekend at Daytona Beach, Florida, and tell them that their baseball program is not King of the Hills down there in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Right, and I saw that facility, and it's nice, city facility.
Jackie Robinson
brick
field.
wall, Jackie Robinson, the historic framework of the name of the stadium itself and what they've been able to do. Yeah. You're exactly right in terms of what the programs are doing.
Yeah.
Great point.
And quick thing, you talked about the all SWAC conference team members. Everybody has to remember these selections are skewed because Florida A&M and Bethune were not eligible to be on the preseason teams because they were not members of the SWAC last year. And the way it works is if you were on the postseason team last year, you're automatically on the preseason team, assuming that you're back at your institution and that you are eligible to play at that institution. Obviously, there was only one slot available, which Florida A&M picked up that one slot that was available, and Bethune didn't pick it up. But let's be real. You only see one Rattler and no Wildcats on the all SWAC team. I guarantee you, in June, you will not see only one Rattler and no Wildcats on the all SWAC team. So everybody keep that in mind. You don't know what these newcomers have. I know what they have because I've seen them, but y'all two don't know what y'all in for. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
No, we snuck a picture and we understand. We keep up with baseball because it's interesting to SWAC. So we like to see over the fence and see what they're doing over there. We know there's some good baseball played in the MEAC, particularly in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Florida's always been and to your point, certainly Alabama State, they played. They've been midweek games, and some of them put up some series. They've been non-conference series, but they played in a couple of matchups because the interest is there. So to your point, I think at the end of the season, it'll change. One thing before we go to this break, I wanted to point out. Thaddeus Reed said, I would like to see more East and West games in baseball. To your point, the coaches are really looking at that, and don't be surprised next year when the schedule comes out that you may see some crossover. They are seriously considering that. They're trying to look at the travel components of that and what that looks like. But baseball coaches want this too. They'll see if they can get it approved by the ADs. If it gets ratified to ADs, then obviously the presidents have to ratify it. Usually if the ADs ratify it, the presidents go with it. But that's the key to see if they can get ratified in terms of the ADs, VPs of athletics, as I like to call them now. With that being said, stick with this great discussion coming into the show tonight. Let's get into the second quarter, and we'll get back to some of that basketball. We got some big games this week. We have first place on the line in a lot of ways. Top teams are facing off, and it is in the state of Texas. So we'll come back and give you some of that information, but we're going to step outside of the SWAC before we do that and come back with some basketball across the country in terms of HBCU sports. With that, this is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports. Professor Bishop, Professor Drew. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody
Network.
they can follow their dreams.
That's right, y'all. The Black College Baseball Championship Series is back. The Black College World Series returns May 11th through 15th to a place where so much black history has been made. Montgomery, Alabama, to the home of the Montgomery Biscuit. That's right. Riverwalk Stadium, downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The cries have been heard, and Black College Championships LLC is here to answer the call. No longer will the poll determine our champion, as the top baseball teams from NCAA Division II and NAIA meet on the field for Black College baseball supremacy.
That spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Can
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
It's something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable. That's a really tight spot. Don't worry. I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield, never not working.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. We're gonna go into the Big South, and as we start things off, you actually have North Carolina A&T playing now, and they are beating up on Presbyterian Blue Holes in terms on the women's side. They did have the last game, which was a loss, but they have run off 5-6 games previous to that and have got back into the winning side of things, still deep buried in the conference. But the women's side of the Aggies are playing much better basketball, and they're leading in the third quarter, 60-35 over the Blue Holes, as we said. When you talk about some of those matchups they did, this past week in terms of them leading into the game. It's going to be fascinating because they had a game on Saturday where they take on Presbyterian again. This time they'll be on the road as this game is at home. Fascinating when you talk about back-to-back games, if you would, against opponents and all that is carrying on. And then you got Hampton. They are winning over UNC Asheville. Again, in terms of the standings, you have North Carolina, they're 3.5 games back, sitting at 7-5. You have Hampton right behind them at 4-5, but they are 5 games back. So behind actually 5 teams ahead of them in the middle of the pack, playing good basketball, but they started off so much behind the curve. They're still trying to figure it out. They got a ways to go if they're going to catch up to Campbell or South Carolina Upstate that lead the conference at 11-2 and 10-2 respectively. Charles, any thoughts in terms of North Carolina A&T basketball? Can they get it done? Can they turn things around? Again, just 3.5 games back, but you don't have many games to catch up in terms of getting it done.
Yeah, well, turning that around means taking care of business on those teams that are underneath you, and that's what you have with Presbyterian. And then also with Hampton taking on UNC Asheville. So you got to make hay against those teams that are underneath you, so that you can just kind of build that momentum. You have that confidence going into those games with those teams that are at the top of the standings, the Camels, the South Carolina Upstates, the Longwood. So it's good that A&T has the ball rolling in the right direction. Only 3.5 back.
Yeah, that's the challenge when you come and you move out of these conferences, and you may not be used to the style of play and those kind of things. You know, they were at the top of the MEAC in terms of last couple of years making runs at it, but now they're in the middle of the pack. And in terms of you having the interest of your fan base, it's going to be interesting to see how that moves on, because you have to be able to find a way to win. One, obviously, that drives fans, period. But when you talk about new people and different interests, you really have to have some wins to recreate these new rivalries, if you would, because they just don't exist. With that being said, Drew, you see that with Tennessee State down to Murray State 45-30, just coming to the half. When you look at the OVC play in terms of Tennessee State women, they started off really well, but they lost 2 straight. They're losing in this matchup. They're just at 500 in the conference race at 6-6, 11-12 overall. Struggling a bit of late, but they find themselves also in the middle of the pack. They're 4 games back of a Belmont Bruins that is 10-2. Behind them is Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles at 9-3. So they have a ways to go as they start to prepare to see if they can make a run in the OVC tournament. What are your thoughts in terms of Tennessee State basketball on the women's side?
Look, Dr. Cavil, and this goes true for North Carolina A&T, Hampton, Tennessee State, and any HBCU. There's one simple formula if you want to be competitive and be one of those top 2 or 3 teams in any conference. You got to do 80% at the house and a minimum of 50% on the road. None of these teams that we're talking about is doing that. So if you can't do that, then you really don't have a shot to position yourself to win your conference. 80% of your conference home games you need to win. Minimum 50% on the road, preferably every 2 out of 3 on the road. If you win 2 out of 3 on the road and 80% at home, you're probably going to be in first and second place.
Good point. Let's jump to the men, and I believe you can say that they're 2, but A&T got a win yesterday over Charleston 62-51. But Hampton continues to struggle as they lost to UNC Asheville 69-53. In terms of those Saturday games, you will see Hampton host Radford, and you'll have North Carolina A&T hosting Longwood. That's a Longwood that's at the top of the conference when you talk about on the men's side. They're undefeated in conference play. Can North Carolina A&T knock off Longwood that is currently undefeated? That would be a statement going into the conference tournament, but they're just 4-6, are feeling good after a win, stopping that losing streak as they had going in a lot of ways. Hampton Pirates sit at 3-8 in terms of what they're doing in the conference race. So I don't know. Interesting matchup. Sticking with you, Drew, any thoughts in terms of what's going on in the Big South there?
Well, once again, when you look at the men, they're doing what they're supposed to at home, under 500 on the road. So wicked. They won 6 out of 8 at home. So got to see that consistency both home and away. And what's the one thing, no matter what sport it is, that travels when you go on the road? Defense. So they've got to pick it up on the defensive side so that they can compete in their conference.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump over to the OVC for you, Charles. Tennessee State, your favorite opponent in a lot of ways on the football side, but this is on the hardwood. Maybe we should get a classic in terms of Tennessee State and Jackson State in basketball. We can see something. My fault. What's going on? Different sport. With that being said, yeah, Tennessee State, they did win their last game. They sit at 5-7, 10-14 overall, but they're still trying to find their way and just can't quite get it done in a lot of ways, if you would. Their last win was Saturday, 69-61 over UT Martin, but currently they played Murray State tonight. Murray State is number 23, top 25 Murray State now. Yeah. 22-2 overall. That's one of those programs that is leaving the conference to go into the Missouri Valley. So those top brands in terms of Belmont, Murray State, that Tennessee State could be at least feel good about being in the same conference with and kind of chase them. They're moving out and they're doing what they've done over the years. Murray State is 12-0. So we got another chance for HBCU to knock off a conference undefeated team. Do you think the men can do it in Tennessee State?
It's going to be a tall order to knock off Murray State, 12-0 in conference and nationally ranked. Yeah, that's asking quite a bit of my Tennessee State Tigers, but they're hosting them, correct?
Yes, they are hosting.
Anything can happen in the Gentry Center, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It is in the Gentry Center.
Big bucks, no whammies. Let's see. Let's see what they got.
Man, let's go back to you, Professor Drew. Charles out here throwing the whammy.
Stop.
Yeah, give me some love on some of these mid-major programs. Any programs with some big games this week? We won't necessarily go into the seedings. We did that this past week, and you're getting ready to get into the tournament time. But I want to know, what are some big matches before we get into the CIAA SIAC tournaments?
Man, on the men and the women's side in the SIAC, Tuskegee and Miles on On the men's side, Biles is in first place. Tuskegee is in second place. On the women's side, flip the script. Tuskegee is in first place and Biles is in second place. So that's going to be a good battle up there at Fairfield, Alabama. So definitely one that you want to look out for. And if you want to look ahead to Monday in the SIAC, Benedict, Savannah State on the women's side. Savannah State had an upset loss earlier this week. Excuse me, not Savannah State. Benedict was upset earlier this week. So that's going to be important for Benedict to pick up their game against Savannah State if they want to stay in the hunt to win the East. So that's going to be your matchup in the SIAC. Flip it over to the CIAA. You've got Virginia Union and Lincoln, PA playing this Saturday. Exactly. Top two in the top two on the in the East, in the north of the CIAA. But if you want to flip over to the South Charles, I'll give you Fayetteville State and Winston-Salem on the south side. So pick one of them. CIAA will be hot and heavy this weekend also.
Great points you made there. G. Boom Holly wants you all to know the OVC is also getting a new school. Yes, some school out of Indiana Division II. I'm not even excited about that, so I'm gonna leave that right there. But
are they HBCU?
Y'all want to know? No.
Okay.
I got you. With that being said, this is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU. Thank you, Professor Drew, for dropping that knowledge. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll get into some MEAC action. It's heating up on that side of the barn as well. We'll be right back after this break as we get into the third quarter. It's halftime.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
That's right, y'all. The Black College Baseball Championship Series is back. The Black College World Series return May 11th through 15th to a place where so much black history has been made. Montgomery, Alabama, to the home of the Montgomery Biscuit. That's right. Riverwalk Stadium, downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The cries have been heard. And Black College Championships LLC is here to answer the call. No longer will the poll determine our champion, as the top baseball teams from NCAA Division II and NAIA meet on the field for Black College baseball supremacy.
The analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
All right.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Bishop and Professor Drew. We're getting into it now, into the MEAC. Not highlighting matchups this weekend, but people are starting to separate themselves. Good teams are still playing good basketball, intriguing matchups. Last week, you had Norfolk State make a statement. They beat Delaware State 102-36. Let me say that again. 102-36. That looked like one of those victories like Jackson State did to FAMU or something over there. I don't know why y'all want to do folks like this. I mean, what is this about? Only
that's pledging. That's pledging. That's welcoming you into the fold. Welcoming you into the SWAC.
Hey, Doc, if their score is 102-34, then they would have tripled them up.
Exactly. Literally. Oh, wow. That being said, Norfolk State is just keeps rolling. They've won 6 straight, obviously, conference games, so they're 6-0. Howard Bison, 5-2, won their last game. They've kind of got tripped up a couple of times after winning last year, so it'll be fascinating to see what goes on there. They're tied with Coppin State at 5-2, so both of those teams are a game and a half back. So it's fascinating. You have Morgan State Lady Bears with just 2 losses at 3-2. So those are some of the things that are happening there. In terms of the matchups, though, you're seeing that's coming up Saturday, Delaware State at Howard, South Carolina State at Coppin. It's probably the game that you're going to keep your eyes on the most. You got North Carolina Central and Morgan State, Maryland Eastern Shore at Norfolk State. And on Monday, obviously, flip, North Carolina Central and Coppin State, South Carolina State and Morgan State, Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore, and Norfolk State at Delaware State. Man, that's a game that could get scary again. This time, though, Delaware State's at home. Maybe a little magic. They can get the upset since we're talking about these teams. No, never mind. Let's keep rolling. Let me go. Charles got to look on his face, and it's going to be hard for him to talk about this. What are your thoughts in terms of MEAC on the women's side? Any matchup, any comments that you have in terms of what's going on this week in MEAC?
I'm trying to actually have some dialogue about this, and I give you a one-word answer, because that one-word answer would be no. Like you said, South Carolina State Coppin. I mean, when you fast forward to Monday's schedule, none of the games really excite me on the women's side. South Carolina State Morgan on Monday. Only if South Carolina State wins on Saturday am I even looking forward to that Monday game. So it's kind of this weekend with the schedule in the BAC on the women's side. It's kind of that dud weekend that you get every now and then with the conference schedules.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this is take care of business weekend for some of those things. But I will say this, the interesting thing about South Carolina State and Coppin State has lost 2 games at home. So, and that was one of the things I was just kind of taking a look at with regards to everybody's home schedule and listening to what you were saying about as far as the 80-20. Even the top 4 teams in the conference, they've all lost 2 games at least at home. Only Morgan State has only lost 1 game at home. So that's just kind of an interesting look back to it too.
Let's jump to the men's side then, where it may get a little bit interesting. You already had North Carolina Central winning the game on Wednesday. I guess they just want to stay in the game shape as you going in and out of this COVID, and you want to just keep things going. But if you get into it, Norfolk State is 6-1. North Carolina Central, after they had that big win on Saturday, they had a tough loss on Monday, so they fall to 4-2. Coppin State at 4-3. The South Carolina State Bulldogs had a big win, but they're just at 4-3. So North Carolina Central, although they had that win and have the head-to-head tiebreaker, they're a game and a half back. And your top 3 teams in the MEAC actually are coming off of losses. And then you get into South Carolina, Howard, and Maryland Eastern Shore, who actually have won a couple of games. South Carolina State 2 straight. And Howard Bison are back in the business, winning 3 straight games after that tough start at 1-3. They're now at 4-3. So let's get back into some of these matchups so you can see what your thoughts on this Saturday and Monday become. You have North Carolina Central at Morgan State, South Carolina State at Coppin, Delaware State at Howard, Maryland Eastern Shore at Norfolk State. And then it flips on Monday. So you have South Carolina State at Morgan, North Carolina Central and Coppin State, Howard and Maryland Eastern Shore, and Norfolk State at Delaware State. Let's go with you, Charles. What are your thoughts on the men's side of the MEAC? Anything stand out? Got your attention this week?
North Carolina Central and Morgan State on Saturday is one that kind of to keep an eye on for me. North Carolina Central, big win, and then they followed up with a loss. So where's the consistency that you're going to get with North Carolina Central? It'll be a tough test, I think, when you go into Baltimore this weekend with Morgan State. So that's one that I'm keeping an eye on this weekend. I think Norfolk State is just rolling right along. They do have that loss out there, but I think they're the most consistent team over there to me.
Mike says win big, lose worse. That's essentially what he said. It's talking about North Carolina Central. He getting in here, getting a shout out. Professor Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of the MEAC on the men's side?
I want to follow South Carolina State this weekend and see what they do. South Carolina State can play themselves into the race. Got a glut of teams at 4-2, 4-3-ish in the MEAC. South Carolina State is a team that take care of two teams that possibly take care of two teams that are tied with them and separate themselves from the pack and get on the heels of a Norfolk State, especially if Central happens to get a split this weekend. South Carolina State takes care of business. They could kind of put a gap between them and the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. That's very intriguing and interesting when you talk about that. Want to give a shout out to Paul Quinn. They're 18-1 in overall, 7-1. And I know you do this and you provide good love in terms of that, but I thought I'd give a little shine. Paul Quinn College, the Tigers up there, obviously not eligible for postseason for those who don't know, but they've won 3 straight out there, a tough loss, but they sit at 18-1, playing some good basketball in the Dallas area. So you're up there and you want to get your HBCU fixed. Check out Paul Quinn. Nice updated arena. That floor is one that you certainly got to put your eyes on in purpose if you can. Check them out in terms of what's going on over there. Obviously, Xavier that has moved over from the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference into the Red River is sitting in second place in what they call the East Division. They've won 5 straight games to get themselves back in the race. They're 16-4 overall, 7-3. So that's some of your NIA updates in terms of what's going on with those teams over there. And
can I
give a little anything on the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, Professor Drew, that you want to shout out there? Or
no,
other
but
NIA programs?
The ones I want to shout out are the ones in the Southern States Conference. That's where Talladega and Steelman sit. And
that was a big matchup. Didn't somebody get upset on that?
Steelman upset Talladega last week. Matter of fact, 1 week ago today, it was last Thursday when Steelman upset Talladega at home. Both these teams play Loyola on Saturday, Monday. Talladega gets them first on Saturday. Steelman gets them on Monday. If you know anything about that Loyola program, they are a top 5 program in the nation. So these teams will definitely earn their stripes this weekend if these teams are happy to beat Loyola and be able to really fortify themselves on the national stage, especially Talladega, with them already being a top 10 program right now. A victory against Loyola would definitely fortify them into the top 5 and keep them in the top 5 after that loss that they had to Steelman.
Yeah, good point. When you talk about what's going on there, shout out to Gulf Coast Athletic Conference as they played a tournament in Little Rock. That's February 25th, 27th. It'll be interesting to see who gets crowned there. With that being said, let's go to our break and we'll come back to the SWAC. Big matchups, as it says, tease out the big matchups coming this week. And I think it's going to be in H&P Arena right here in Houston, Texas, where the TV lights will be on Saturday. We'll talk a little bit more about that after the break. Getting into the fourth quarter, let's bring it strong because it should be interesting.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. Number 15?
Never not working.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Head & Shoulders scalp shield, never not working.
That's right, y'all. The Black Collar Baseball Championship Series is back. The Black Collar World Series return May 11th through 15th to a place where so much black history has been made. Montgomery, Alabama, to the home of the Montgomery Biscuit. That's right. Riverwalk Stadium, downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The cries have been heard, and Black College Championships LLC is here to answer the call. No longer will the poll determine our champion, as the top baseball teams from NCAA Division II and NAIA meet on the field for Black College baseball supremacy.
Analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Randolph got the running start, gives it to Stevens. Bam! 3-point! Stevens knocks it down.
How about him that, Doc?
Yeah, I know you feel good. I know you feel good. I had to show that for Professor Drew. He let me know that I hadn't really shouted out to everybody, so it seemed just appropriate to make sure that video and give a shout out to Jerome G. Sutton. Fam, you out there, give him some love, man. That was a dagger. I was dating, getting ready for my game, Bethune-Cookman. We in the campus. I think I'm rolling around, watching the women game. I glazed back at the phone. I think it was 11-point lead or something like that. My understanding balloon is 16. I was like, oh, yeah, we in good shape. I look back at the score after I'm checking the different things, because I check it regularly so I can kind of get a pulse of the game when we get prepared to talk about the week. You know, I can kind of give you some insights, flows of the game, and I'm not just looking at the final score. Oftentimes I had a video on so I can watch the game. So I'm watching this and I look back and it's like 1 point. So then I was like, oh, I got to watch this. So I turn on it. So I actually see this. I'm in the thing and everybody else. And I think Texas Southern makes a good dunk and everybody's cheering. And I'm like this. And I look and I'm like, it didn't look good. And the president looks at me like, what's wrong with you? Don't worry about it. Shout out to Mike Washington. He's on the plane, but he's at least checking us out. Edwin Dwight Moore gives a shout out. Go PQ. Talking about Paul Quinn, Reginald Johnson in the house, in the building. Jake Mack says, what's up, fellas? G Boom Holly, you know, he's always getting it done for a shot clock era, as he likes to call it. Bobby Knight in the building. Who else we got in here? Shout out some folks that are taking time to check us out. Appreciate you, Craig. Yeah. Who is that?
My cousin Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight.
Shout out to the McKinnon family reunion. Shout out to old Bobby.
Yeah, don't eat all the food up there next time. Cause we told me not to say that. Arby Parker in here. Who else we got in here? Dewan Woodard, Kimberly Reynolds. Appreciate you. Ricky Burton in here, Chuck Hunt, Thomas White Jr. is checking us out. Michael Knox, man, Thaddeus Reed, Keith Martin. I see you. The lab listeners are in the building. Shout out to Kevin Crawford. And Rattlers, man, I tell you, man, I thought I was gonna come to Florida and just take a Texas two-step all the way, not to be. Thank goodness. I'm also associated with Texas University because they got it done. Which means we got a big weekend in the SWAC this weekend. Charles, what your thoughts are?
Yeah, how was that Bethune-Cookman atmosphere down there? That gymnasium down there for the Texas Southern game?
Man, I might have to put up a couple of videos. It is a barn. It reminds you of those small games. Those that are historians of HBCU basketball and remember playing in those matchbox, old gym, junior high school stadiums. That's what they had. But they bring the energy in there. And essentially they put the students in the upper sections. They have some bucket seats where for the alumni come in and visitors, guests, and they put a couple of students in there, sporting team students that get that section. But they're really riled up. And then they have the band that comes in. And the vibe that they have with the band and the DJ is not quite like any other. I've seen many schools that do the bands and they do the DJs. And it really is good, but I've never seen as much of a mix between the two, where you can tell there's synergy, maybe even practice in terms of what's going on in the orchestration there. And you can tell it really pumps up this team. Texas Southern had an 18-point at halftime as they got into it, but you can see that in a lot of ways they were paying attention to the fans. They all own you, so they rarely think about FAMU with the keychains when they were going back with Coach Pettaway in those days, when they were giving you heartache and problems, obviously. Even Grambling before they built their new stadium. So that's the gift and the curse. Obviously, you got to stay the amenities and you need the new to help with recruiting. But sometimes you build those bigger barns and you just don't have an intimate atmosphere. So it's fascinating when you see Bethune-Cookman because you really feel like you're going in a time warp. And it takes you back to those NAIA games. If you had any chance to see any of those, talking about Paul Quinn, Texas College, Xavier, those games, even the CIAA and SIAC, they have some really nice, tight gyms, especially the private HBCUs. When you get in there and you feel an energy like none other, that's when you get the Bethune-Cookman. And I would say it's probably worth 8 to 10 points in that gymnasium. In terms of that, if you're not careful and you allow yourself to get riled up, and that's where they got a couple of victories because they're not quite as talented as they probably would be when the transition of coaches. But when they play at home, it's a different vibe and different energy. So I appreciate you checking out and asking that question. Let's get into the women's side of things on the SWAC. Obviously, we know with Jackson State, they continue to do it. They even winning despite the fact that the guard was out injured. The games have been a little closer, but they find a way to get wins. And a lot of times they're still getting the double-digit wins, but they go from winning by 20+ to now just like 10+. So it's interesting in terms of that dynamic of how talented you are with a team that you can have a player set out. You're still winning, and we're talking about a close game being +10. That's amazing to me when you talk about what's going on with the Jackson State. Southern is behind them. They had their chance against Jackson State, couldn't get it done, but they still are sitting pretty solid in terms of what they're getting done in the conference, sitting at 8-3. They had that last loss, which surprised a lot of interest. So even more separation when you see Jackson State at 11-0. So you got to watch out if you're Southern because now you got Grambling State Lady Tigers sitting at 7-4. Alabama State Lady Hornets quietly have won a couple of games and sit at 7-4 right behind them, nipping on the heels. And even behind that, you have Arkansas Pine Bluff at 6-5, Texas Southern at 6-5, Prairie View at 6-5, and Alabama A&M at 6-5. So you have a lot of teams out of it. You pretty much have FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, Mississippi Valley, 2-8, 2-8, 2-9, and then Alcorn State Lady Braves sit at 1-8. Those teams are so far back, they're probably going to be your 4 teams out of the tournament. I can't see them making a run. They're still technically still in it, but you can see that the top 8 are pretty much in the mix in terms of who's going to make the tournament. But now you're talking about seeding. So it'll be interesting when you talk about this week because these are the matchups. Grambling at Texas Southern on women's side and men's side. We'll talk a little more about the men's side. Both of these games will be on television, NBA TV. Texas Southern, it'll be interesting to see what this crowd like. It's usually pretty good, but they've done a lot of marketing both to on campus and off campus. So it's going to be fascinating to see if that helps anything even more with the attendance. Bethune-Cookman at Alcorn State. Arkansas Palmer, Alabama State, Mississippi Valley at Alabama A&M, Southern at Prairie View, FAMU at Jackson State. You know, that's a rivalry on the football, rivalry in volleyball. Is it anything on women's basketball? I'm not sure about that one yet, but we'll get a chance to at least talk about it. Could be interesting. I think the game, as we said, Bethune-Cookman, Alcorn, somebody gets a chance to get a win and feel good about themselves. Bethune-Cookman got that upset over Texas Southern. So will it make a difference when they hit the road? Let me start with you, AD Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of the women's side of the SWAC with these matchups? Obviously, on Monday, they flip Southern Texas Southern, Mississippi Valley, Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman, Jackson State, Grambling, Prairie View, FAMU, Alcorn. Saturday or Monday, which games are you looking at, Professor Drew?
Look, everybody playing for second place in the SWAC right now when it comes to the women's side. Jackson State is a clear number one unless Jackson State gets on a tremendously bad streak with injuries and COVID. I don't see Jackson State losing that number one seed. So right now, everybody's playing to avoid, first of all, that number 8 slot. If you're in that number 8 slot, please do not make hotel reservations in Birmingham because you probably won't be there past game time if you have to play Jackson State in the first round. But the game that I'm interested with, the team I'm going to really be interested in following this weekend is going to be UAPB as they make that Alabama swing.
There we go.
And UAPB, once again, can position themselves in a good spot for the remainder of the season with a sweep on this Alabama swing, or they could push themselves down and possibly be a first-round opponent for Jackson State with a bad weekend on that Alabama swing.
Charles, what are your thoughts?
Now
I thought you brought it up, but I believe Jackson State. I mean, obviously, your term as you want. But I guess the question I have for you, verbally last year, they had that tough loss to Alabama State. They kind of pushed it a little bit. They finally to get it done because Alabama State had 2, so they got the luxury of winning the regular season. I think it made a difference in the tournament. Is there such thing as you hear that proverbial saying, a good loss? Is that real? Obviously, coaches want to push.
Yeah, I think it can refocus you, but I think those refocus games have already happened with Jackson State. I thought Southern did a great job of pushing them at home. And mind you, this was with Deja Rogan out. She came back this past Monday against UAPB. But UAPB played this team very, very tough for 3 quarters, midway through the 4th quarter, and Jackson State kind of stretched out at the end. So this is the SWAC women's side that I've been waiting to see. I've been waiting to see UAPB make their push. I've been waiting for an upset like Alabama State at Southern. That was huge this past Monday night. Monday night, weird things happen. But this is the Alabama State team that I was expecting to see. So now I think things are starting to get a little bit more interesting. And the gulf that Jackson State had separated out at the beginning of the season, I think it's kind of coming in just a little bit as we get towards SWAC tournament.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Let's get into the men's side of things. Just be fascinating here when you talk about the fact you have Southern. They have won 3 straight games. Losses. They sit at 9-2. Behind them is Texas Southern that has won games. Grambling State Tigers have won a game at the 3. Alcorn State won 2 games. They sit in 8-3. FAMU was on a win streak of 7. Texas Southern stopped that, but then they bounced back and got that 3 at the buzzer we showed you at the beginning of this 4th quarter, if you would. And so they sit at 8-3. So this is a big weekend for some of these matchups when you talk about the fact that you have Grambling State Southern. That is an NBA TV game, as I talked about earlier. You have Grambling coming in overall at 10-13. Texas Southern is 10-10 at the 500 mark. Both teams are 8-3. If you're Texas Southern, you want that game because then Monday becomes a game for first place, right? In terms of that matchup, obviously you have the differential in terms of seeding, in terms of the amount that you might want to win the game. But the first thing is to get the game. Grambling, obviously, they want to win because they want to keep pace and have the showdown when they play Southern the next time to make sure they have a chance to have the first place on the line. So it's fascinating matchups. You also have Bethune-Cookman at Alcorn State. Bethune-Cookman obviously got that win against Prairie View, but the tough loss against Texas Southern, they hit the road. They got a chance to make a statement against Alcorn. They're sitting at 8-3. Mississippi Valley State and Alabama A&M. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Alabama State. These are teams now jockeying for seeding. It's coming a little closer in terms of those teams looking at trying to be the 7th, 8th seed in there in terms of that last weekend and going to the tournament. So it's fascinating. Southern at Prairie View. Prairie View is in desperation. 2 tough losses on the road. They got to find a way to get it win, but they playing very tough teams, as we said. 9-2 Southern team, and then an 8-3 Grambling team. So it's fascinating to see what goes on there. On the men's side, you have FAMU at Jackson State. FAMU is trying to keep course to make sure they put themselves in a position. They're still in striking distance to get the regular season win. You talking about the first year in the conference on the men's side. If you can get a championship, whether it's co-championship or outright championship, that's a statement for your basketball program. So, you know, they're looking down the best. And that 3-point at the end of the game gave them some new life after that tough loss to Texas Southern when they had everything on the line to try to get that victory. So those are some intriguing matchups. As you said, it flips on Monday with Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Alabama A&M, Southern and Texas Southern, Bethune-Cookman at Jackson State, Grambling at Prairie View, FAMU at Alcorn, Mississippi Valley at Alabama State. Let me go to Professor Drew. Get your thoughts. What matchups are you having your eyes on? I know I talked about Grambling and Texas Southern and then Texas Southern and Southern. You see the same, or are you looking at some other game?
Yeah, the Prairie View did not have a 30-plus game home winning streak for any reason. You know, there's a certain atmosphere at Prairie View. You expect Prairie View to get at least a split this weekend out of those 2 tough games that they have at home, if not sweep those. The thing you want to you have to look out for the 2 Alabama teams. The 2 Alabama teams should be able to take care of business this weekend and position themselves a little better. I mean, we got 10 of the 12 teams that are in the race, and only 8 get to make it. So this is a weekend where people need to handle the business. The Alabama teams need to sweep. If you're at home, you really want to win those games at home so that you can remain. Because if anybody goes on a multiple game losing streak at this point in the season, you may play your way out of the tournament.
Yeah, to you, Charles, the only team that's out at this point, basically, you would think is Mississippi Valley at 1-10. But we talked about the top teams. Look at this. You have Alabama State at 5-6, Alabama A&M at 4-7, Bethune-Cookman at 4-7, Jackson State at 4-7, Prairie View at 4-7, and then even behind that, you have Arkansas Pine Bluff at 3-8. So you have some teams that have a chance to put themselves in that position when you talk about 6, 7, and 8 seed. What games has your interest this weekend?
Southern, Texas Southern. I think that's the one that jumps out for me. When you take a look
Monday
at
night. Those Monday nights too.
Valentine's night, somebody gonna get their heart broke. It's gonna be a knockdown drag out. And you're talking about the number 1 offensive team versus the number 1 defensive team in the SWAC. And I thought Mississippi Valley State chucked up 3-pointers. Nah, this Southern team is number 1 in the SWAC in terms of checking up 3-pointers. They shoot 38% from behind the arc, number 1 in the SWAC. That's going to be a good one. But this is the basketball in the SWAC. This is parity on any given night. I don't know. It's almost Miakish. I don't know what's going to happen. You know,
there's my word.
Because we have seen just Jekyll and Hyde throughout the season, and this is a weekend. I think Prairie View, they have to get that. There's no split. They have to go 2-0 against 2 of the best teams in the SWAC.
Great points made by both of you. That'll do it for us today. Let me give a shout out first to Chunk Hunt. He says, "I'm looking forward to seeing you on television again. Texas Southern plays Grambling on NBA TV." Yes. Shout out for all those that clipped it. Sent me some updates, love, whatever you want to call it, as I was visibly on NBA TV. That was cool to see all the accolades. Shout out to all those that gave me birthday well wishes today. I appreciate all the thoughts. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Mills Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Shout out to Charles, Neely, and Drew, the professors visiting, were in the house. Charles took over the chair hot seat, and he got it done. Great dialogue, great discussion. Man, I felt like I could just step back out. I said, oh, lecture in session for real, the way they went in there. I didn't even have to put on my lab jacket. I felt good just being in the back and just sitting back and being like, wow, they brought it. With that being said, we look for you next week as we discuss the latest news in the labs, give you the update on the hardwood, start telling you what's going on in baseball, sneak in maybe even some softball. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Remember, indoor track championships are coming up. We'll see what that looks like, and then we're going to turn to the outside. A&T is still getting it done. We'll see what's going on in the SWAC, see if FAMU is going to bring any of that speed to the indoor track meets. We'll see what's going on there. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKenyattCavil. Tell your friends to like, subscribe. Let's get it going. Continue to build, dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Drew?
Of course.
Charles?
Lecture.
Dismiss. Time to go do the birthday.
We holla.